Ms. Kitschuk. The problem that Congress has, as I see it, this is my own view of it, is that we understand we have a couple of agencies out there. We have OPM and we have EEOC, as Mr. Stalkup has pointed out, that kind of oversees all of this. But as other witnesses have also pointed out, I think the problem is always going to be accountability. So even if you are identifying shortcomings, promoting best practices, and an agency or department doesn't follow through, the worst thing that can happen to them is they get a failing mark on a scorecard, or there's a newsletter or a publication or a site somewhere that says you didn't do very well. But it's been my experience working with Chairwoman Nidia Velazquez that scorecards don't mean very much to an agency or a department if there aren't any consequences. The example I always give is that on bundling and federal contracting, which is a real problem, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, we believe small businesses should have these opportunities. But over and over again, each and every department out there, the federal government fails to meet its contractual obligations, as we see it, to make sure the opportunities are extended to small businesses. So we give them an F, we give them a D, the highest one I think is a C. Nothing ever changes. And I've always said, well, there's no accountability, there's no consequence. And I don't want to say it should be punishment. I'm not sure what we do about accountability. I don't know what an agency or department that fails to institute that which you are promoting and identified as good practices and continue to fail in being more aggressive in meeting numbers on diversity. I don't know what you do. And I'm not even going to give you that answer. I'm not real sure. You know, I always think it's always about budgets, but that's another an argument for another day. So I think what Congressman Davis, and I'm not speaking for Mr. Davis or any of the other members of oversight, the Oversight Committee, but I think what they're trying to say is, well, maybe if we have someone within OPM that will be maybe more aggressive about the manner in which you identify different approaches that you will be recommending to agencies, and you still follow through. And even then, within those agencies or departments, even having, again, a more diverse panel that will be looking at hiring practices so that whatever you promulgate, as it filters down to agencies and departments, you actually are mirroring a panel that will be composed. Obviously, I think the way Mr. Davis has it, I think he has, you know, a woman and then a person of color and so on that would be on this panel. I think the last hearing that I attended with Mr. Davis, you did not embrace that piece of legislation. I'm not speaking for you. Do you oppose that particular recommendation or suggestion?
We believe very strongly that the panels should consist of diverse individuals. We agree in principle that that's important. We have issued guidance that tell folks to comprise their panels in SES selection from a broad spectrum of employees to make sure that there is representation. What we object to or don't support in that legislation is the mandatory nature of that. Every time, the way we read the legislation, every time a panel is drawn, it has to have a certain makeup. And we just think that that is too restrictive. You might know that OPM has been working very hard. We have an SES pilot starting to try to do things in a more efficient manner, try to encourage hiring by making the process not so cumbersome. And we think that's just too restrictive. Okay,
thank you. The next question, the following up, is going to be with Mr. Gill and Mr. Oseguera. I think there's a perception out there that it takes a little bit more work, a little bit more effort to identify a minority applicant. The pool may not be as great. It takes a greater effort. It definitely is more targeted. For instance, I think we've already had Ms. Kitschuk indicate that they go to these universities that have high minority representation, Latino community and such. Recognizing that, and again, I don't speak for Mr. Davis, but I would imagine that the motive behind this is to, in a way, institutionalize within OPM and within every department and agency this sensitivity based and predicated on the composition of these panels. Do you believe that that is an appropriate approach to make sure that whatever OPM is doing is, one, that it does identify that which is most effective, and secondly, that the departments and agencies to which they are communicating these suggestions are, in fact, taking them seriously and implementing those policies. Mr. Gill?
I'll refer to Mr.
Or Mr. Osegueda?
We think that we should have an opportunity to be there when those decisions are made. But the thing here is that if we don't have this access to this data that says that how many people are applying, who these people are applying for these SES positions, we can't really tell you whether these Hispanics are applying or not. But we have contended ever since for the last couple of years that there is no lack of talented and qualified Hispanic for SES positions. We are out there. We are not, I think the federal government is not making the effort to, in fact, prepare, develop, and provide opportunities for development for these people to actually compete for SES positions. I don't think that is the fact that we are not there. I don't think it's the fact that we are not applying. I don't think it's the fact that we are not qualified for that and we are not interested in being in SES positions. Our position is that there are now opportunities, and we have been discriminated for a long time, and we've been passed for promotions for a long time, as we have indicated here with the data. So we think that without those measures of accountability, and ever since Executive Order 171 came up, we don't see this accountability being in place. We think that by having these panels, then that measure of accountability is incorporated into the agency diversity initiatives.
And Mr. Gill, do you have an opinion on it?
Mr. Chair, I'll address it more in the aspect of opportunity regarding within the federal government. We know that there are studies show that less than 25% of all college students ever thinking about working for the federal government as a career choice, the largest employer in the United States. What we have seen as a result of participating in opportunities such as the ones that we offer is that their interest in working for the federal government increases tremendously. And nearly, as I reported, 90% now would consider working for the federal government as a career choice. That's a tremendous chasm that has been bridged with just a 10, 15-week opportunity. I think that is important as regards to the pipeline issue, because as it is easier to get in at the entry level than it is through the more senior ranks. So what we're trying to do is provide a pipeline for those individuals for the long-term viability of a workforce in the United States. So I commend OPM and other federal agencies that look at this as a long-term human resource issue, because they're starting to see that they need to go where the Latino students are in partnering with Hispanic serving institutions.